Robin's with you in the afternoons.
This is Robin Bright with you here on The Vine, but I am not alone. We're having a kind of a busy but perfect Thursday today. A lot of rescheduling going, but today we're going to pretend it's Wednesday. It's Wellness Wednesday with Jane Ehrman from Images of Wellness. Hey, Jane, how are you?
Hey, I'm well. How about you, Robin?
Oh, I'm doing great. Well, last time you were here, we were talking about hypnosis, and I found that so interesting, especially because it was something I didn't personally have a lot of experience with, and I know there's more to it and some other sides to it. Kids are back in school now, and they are trying so hard to do their best in academics, sports, expressive arts like band, dance, choir. And for some, we all know it can be really stressful and overwhelming, and they feel tons of pressure, especially these days, to do their best, both from themselves, maybe from others. And that stress can really affect how well they perform. And in our last segment about clinical hypnosis, you shared that we could learn how to change the way we think and respond in situations. And I've heard that a lot of high-level performers and professional athletes use hypnosis to perform their best. So we talked about this last time. Can you share briefly what hypnosis is and how it works?
Robin, all you've said is true. To clarify, hypnosis is a highly focused state of concentration where a person is also generally relaxed. It's a trance state, a natural way that we process our thoughts. For example, you may have driven somewhere, and then when you got there, you wondered, how did I get here?
Yes.
You know, that happens a lot of the time for us. And it's because you were deep in thought, which is a trance state. And we all go in and out of trance states throughout the day. You know, if you're focused, really focused on a movie you're watching or a sporting event, and maybe even scrolling on your device, you don't hear someone, calling your name. So a hypnotherapist helps you to get into that trance state where you're more open to positive suggestions. And in that trance state, you're aware of the thoughts and perceptions and emotions that get in your way and affect how well you perform. So the hypnotherapist then offers you positive suggestions to help break those old patterns and strengthen your peak performance.
Oh my gosh. So not just a trance state where you make it home and don't remember how you got there, but a trance state that can have benefits.
Yes.
And actually do some good things.
Because actually when you're driving, you do want to know where you are and what you're doing as opposed to being in the trance state.
But I think we've all done that.
It naturally happens. Yes.
Yeah. Did I already pass that red light? Or
did I stop for the light?
I certainly hope so. Well, what is this rehearsal imagery that you're talking about?
Well, it's important to know, Robin, that what you imagine is how you'll perform. When you mentally relive or rehearse actions, what's happening scientifically is the nerves and muscles for those actions respond to what you're imagining as though you're physically doing them in real time. And when you imagine doing a skill just right, research shows that you can improve the performance up to 20%. That's
significant,
a lot. Yeah. It's really significant. So when I'm working with a person to improve their performance, I help them tap into and relive performing with confidence, focused, all in, performing with excellence. I help them imagine that performing with excellence. This is rehearsal imagery. That's what high-level performers and professionals do. What goes on in your head, between your ears, is powerful and effective. It affects how well you perform physically. So again, what you imagine is how you perform. The mind-body is fully engaged.
All right. Well, you've said that professional athletes and performers do rehearsal imagery.
Absolutely. Patrick Mahomes does rehearsal imagery, usually sitting on the field before games, and also before every play during the game. It just takes a few moments for him because he's so well practiced at doing that. LeBron James does rehearsal imagery on the practice court, on the bench. There are photos of him sitting there with his eyes closed. He's not taking a nap. He's focusing. He's getting himself in the zone. He's imagining. And he does it routinely as part of his training.
It's physical and mental.
Yes. Steph Curry practices these tools to stay focused and in the zone. He clears mistake when it comes to shots or passes. He clears those quickly and resets to the present, back in the zone. Olympic athletes, professional musicians, performers of all kinds practice rehearsal imagery, as well as highly successful businesswomen and men who use it before meetings and presentations.
I feel like I saw a lot of Olympic athletes doing that before.
Absolutely.
They always would show them like sitting on the sideline before they'd go to swim, or sitting on the sideline before they'd go on the gymnastics mat. And they seemed so intent, usually eyes shut, like you said, just focused.
When I worked with a high caliber figure skater, when she would do her imagery, I could tell when she was doing a double Salchow. I could tell when she was spinning, because her body would actually jerk to those movements as she was rehearsing it. It was really amazing to watch.
Oh, I bet. Well, besides rehearsal imagery, what are some effective practices and techniques that kids can use to perform their best?
Great question. Before a quiz or exam, when we're nervous or stressed, we tend to shallow breathe or hold our breath. That reduces the amount of oxygen to the brain and affects memory recall. So that's why a lot of students go into a test and say, I didn't know all the answers. And as soon as I came out, I knew what they were, because they weren't breathing well during the exam. So breathe slowly and deeply. Let go of tension as you exhale. Take some full breaths and long exhales throughout the exam. Another is positive self-talk. I know the information. Tell yourself everything I learned and studied, obviously you have to study, is in my memory, and I access it easily and accurately. The correct answers come quickly and easily. These are things you say to yourself. I'm excited to show all I know, instead of I'm afraid I'm going to fail.
Right.
I'm excited to show all I know. Go with your first answer. I tell you that as a former teacher. It's usually correct. We get into trouble when we start second guessing the answer.
Right.
How many times have we checked kids' exams and they've erased the correct answer and put a different answer in?
Right.
Yeah.
I've seen that many times as an elementary teacher. I've seen so many times where, gosh, they had it right.
Yeah,
and
what
then
happened?
You can see it through the erasing.
Yes. Another is in sports. This is what elite players always do. During practices and the game, just performing the skill, whether it's a foul shot, a penalty kick, music, dance performance, focus, feel, and go. Let go of talk you're doing with your friends or who's in the audience or whatever. Just focus, feel, go. What that means is focus on the skill you're about to do. Feel the way it feels in your body when you do it just right, when you do it well. Now you've lit up that neuromuscular pathway. Now do it. It's go time. Practice that focus, feel, go all the time when you're practicing your skills. That's what you see, high-level basketball players doing when they're at the foul line.
Right.
Okay, the last one is clear mistakes. Stop reliving the mistake in your head.
Delete.
That takes you out of the zone. Yeah, imagine wiping that mistake away like an eraser on a whiteboard. Get back into the present. Focus, feel, go.
I would imagine that would just make it so much easier to think when it's just lingering there. How do you move forward when you're still stuck in that mistake?
You have to stop it. You have to practice stopping it. And when I work with an athlete on that, or a performer of any kind, I teach them a specific skill where they're wiping it out. They're staring and wiping it out, closing their eyes and wiping it out. They're doing that for a certain amount of time, and then they, in their mind, are wiping out old mistakes, just wiping them out, just imagining they're wiping out that whole scene. And then when they're actually in practice or in a game, or whether they're playing a certain measure of music and a mistake is made, they need to stop and wipe it out mentally and move on. Sure, there's a part of their brain that wants to go, let's talk about that. It's like, no, thank you, and get back to the present. So it takes practice.
Right, I would think so. Well, you've given us a lot of helpful tips for improving our performance. Is this process easy to learn, or does it take time?
Yes, it is. It's easy to learn. Imagery and hypnosis are easy, and it's easier to practice on your own after getting some guidance from a professional. So people tend to focus on the negative, which works against peak performance. Hypnosis and imagery effectively help you break up that old unhelpful set of patterns and release negative self-talk and clear emotions that block your best performance. I've worked with individuals and teams at the high school and college levels to help them successfully achieve peak performance.
Well, thank you so much, Jane. I always love it when you're able to come in, but what a great way to use hypnosis for achieving peak performance. And all these tips, I think, are going to help, well, really anyone that wants to put them into practice. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Robin.
KVYN St. Helena, K278AH, Calistoga, 99.3 The Vine, broadcasting live from South Napa Century Center.